I was lucky enough to be invited to a play session this week to experience Battlefield 2042 for the very first time. I went into the session with mixed feelings, to be honest. I want the game to be a true successor to Battlefield 4, but also realised that having those high expectations for the game after the past 3 or 4 years of content coming from DICE was probably a mistake. So I guess you could say I wasn't expecting much, but I wanted to be pleasantly surprised. In this video, I'm going to give you my honest impressions of the beta with an overall summary of how I found the first few hours of playing. I'll be joining the open beta this week as much as possible between work and might develop some new opinions on the game over time. Some of the positive and negative aspects surrounding Battlefield 2042 are already very apparent though, and I think many will share my opinions. That being said, the usual disclaimer that this is of course a beta and DICE will aim to improve many parts of the experience before the launch. I've included gameplay from the map Orbital, that's the one we got to play. I played mostly 2 classes, the Mackay class and then the Medic Falk. The grappling hook was definitely my favourite gadget to use. However, we will get access to those 10 specialists when the game releases, leaving plenty of options for anybody playing the game. You won't just see one specialist. I think the wingsuit will probably be the most popular, but you definitely will see a good variety. The main thing that stuck out to me after I first spawned in was the map size. Orbital is supposed to be one of the medium-sized maps in Battlefield 2042, but straight away I found myself running for ages before finding any action whatsoever. It's not just the footprint of the map that creates this issue though, it's actually the verticality. Quite a few buildings can be entered and climbed, which sounds fantastic, but you do have to remember that Battlefield is not an open world game and is instead an FPS game. Verticality definitely brings some epic moments, but at the same time it can be a real issue. Think back to Battlefield 4 and how DICE had to remove some ladders off the side of buildings, especially in some of the smaller game modes to prevent people getting onto the roof and camping. I'm not saying you shouldn't have any verticality in a game. The tower on Siege of Shanghai is spectacular, but maybe due to the actual size of the maps combined with so many tall buildings, it might be a bit of an issue. It was something that I noticed though, so that's why it's in here. The grappling hook allows players to swing above buildings a bit like a Spider-Man, or if you ever played Apex, it's a bit like the robot character off there. You fire the grappling hook out in front of you and you swing or kind of get dragged in towards it. You can use it on vehicles as well to drag you along a little bit, and pretty much everything within the defined distance can be grappled onto. This allows you to get on top of buildings very, very easily. I'm not saying it's always a problem, as I said before, but you will notice that a lot of people sit on buildings, and finding players because of that, even with 128 players, was a little bit difficult. When you do bump into lots of players though, and you are all fighting on the same flag, it is just like you'd expect with Battlefield. Lots of different people coming from all sorts of directions, very hectic, vehicles getting involved as well, all trying to cap that portion of the objective, as of course they're split up in 2042. A positive has to be the graphics. As with all Battlefield games that came before it, and probably all Battlefield games that come after it, 2042 has pretty decent visuals. If you get the graphical settings just right, you can achieve a sensational experience visually. The gameplay in the background though has a lot of settings turned down because, as you've probably guessed, with a Battlefield game in beta, and to be honest, any recent Battlefield game, it doesn't run so well in my opinion. The impact on the FPS when you turn the settings up is quite serious. At the minute I'm playing on a 2080 Ti and an 8700K, which is a pretty decent PC, and I was getting, I'd say, about 80 FPS on a mixture of medium and high settings. I didn't turn anything to low because I did want to provide some sort of decent footage in terms of what it looked like visually, but for me it needs a bit of work. I think a lot of people are going to struggle. I am lucky enough to actually own a 3080 Ti, which you'll see why later in the week. I'm going to get that installed and then come back to you with some more information. However, I'm not really so worried about it at this stage. It's the beta. As long as the main game runs well and the players on console have a good experience too, by the time the game releases, hopefully it's all sorted. On top of the good looking graphics, providing you can find the right settings, you have two massive events on Orbital. The rocket launch is spectacular with two possibilities. Firstly, it can take off like you'd expect and just fly off into the sky. I tried to get on top of it a couple of times and go off with the rocket, but I couldn't get that to work. Surely there'll be somebody who's managed to sit on it without dying and gone right up to the skybox and look down on everyone from above. I'm not too sure if you can do it, but that would be pretty cool. The second thing you can do though with the rocket is actually shoot it in a certain place and destroy it. Jack was trying to do this for ages. I think he's probably going to make a video on it, no doubt. And he'll teach you how to explode that rocket and cause a massive, humongous firework that everyone on the map can see. The second thing that you will definitely not miss on the map is the tornado. Now, my opinion on these events in Battlefield games gone past, such as the sandstorm on Omen, or these massive storms that you get on Parasol Storm, visually they look superb. They are really, really cool, and they just look incredible. They do quite often, more often than not I'd say, have a negative impact on the gameplay. A lot of people won't like me saying that because they think this stuff is cool in Battlefield games, but finding the balance between having something that looks cool and something that actually adds to the gameplay experience is quite difficult, and I really don't envy DICE trying to find that balance. The tornado, in my opinion, was a bit on the heavy side. It came in, caused mass destruction, looked insane, everyone ran towards it and jumped into it, and it kind of took away all of the focus from what you're supposed to do in a Battlefield game, or at least what I think you're supposed to do, which is play the objective. It's not something that I'm complaining about. I think it's something that if you don't like it, you're going to have to get used to it, and if you do like it, good for you. But that's my opinion on the tornado. It looked superb, but most people did run towards it and try and fly around in it and all of that stuff. I was guilty of doing that too. Maybe it calms down after a couple of weeks of the game releasing and it just becomes something you try and avoid. I'm not really too sure, but it did look pretty damn spectacular. Another thing I quite enjoyed was the destruction. It wasn't quite as groundbreaking in my opinion as when Battlefield 3 released, or even going back to Bad Company 2. That was really cool, but it did have a lot of destruction in there. The previously mentioned rocket blasts all sorts of debris around it while it's taking off, and the tornado will carve out a path through the map as it goes around the place, flinging things into the air, vehicles, people, buildings, whatever it can get its hands on, and throw stuff around you. It does look pretty epic. Buildings will crumble around you whilst you're in a firefight, as you'd expect. It's all very Battlefield, and it feels just like it should. Moving on to something that I didn't like. Again, it's one of those things that I think some people will enjoy, some people won't. It's the Weapon Plus system. I thought the actual animation and the UI and everything connected to it worked really, really well. It was a lot smoother than I thought it would be, and it looks, you know, like it's been worked on for a long time. It's really quite impressive, but I can't actually see the point of it. For me, Battlefield has always been about creating a loadout and then venturing into battle, relying on your choices and then assisting teammates where you could. The system seems to give you the option to take on loads of different situations though, almost like a battle royale game. I remember playing PUBG and you see an enemy in the distance, you switch out your scope and it gives you a better chance of taking them down. Now if that's what people want in Battlefield games, sure, I guess this is what we need. But for me, I prefer putting a loadout together and then thinking, oh wait, I haven't chosen a high-powered scope, so I'm going to struggle in this engagement. And you have to kind of cater your gameplay to the loadout you've picked. Again, not a massive issue with it. I just thought it was going to have some more substance to it. I'm not going to say it's a gimmick. That would be unfair at this stage. But let me know what you think of that in the comments below. My opinion, looks cool, runs really well. This is the Weapon Plus system, but I don't really see the point in it just yet. I'll also mention that I think a lot of things were turned off in the beta, so it's not really the full experience in terms of your customization, weapon unlocks, all of that stuff. You'll have to wait for the full game to get that full experience. Now on to something that was fun, and as you can tell with this video, I'm kind of going between what I didn't like and what I did like instead of putting them into one whole section. Just kind of going through my thoughts as I was playing the game. I made some notes, noted things down with what I enjoyed. Now, this is the movement. I thought it was fun. That's the best word for it. It was fast-paced, it was agile, you've got a nice little slide in there. If you're running with the grappling hook, you can fly around the place. Firefights were always fun. One issue I did have, it's not connected to the movement, but my accuracy is all over the place, and more all over the place than usual. My accuracy is questionable at the best of times, but in the beta I couldn't quite get my sensitivity and FOV as I wanted it. Apparently, the settings are incorrectly displayed. so you're not quite getting the correct FOV and sense that you think you are. And also I had a few stutters in there too, many people have complained about. So not that I play this to get the best gameplay, especially in a beta, in a test environment. It was just a little frustrating at times. The movement though, I thought it was good. It's moved on definitely since Battlefield 1, which was quite slow-paced. Battlefield 5 was okay. This, I think, is the next step, and it did seem to be quite good, in my opinion. Now, as we drop back to something else I didn't enjoy, it's the AI players. I've not been a fan of the idea of AI players. I know they're there to just fill up servers as other people join. I think there are better ways to do it, unless the AI players are really, really good. They weren't, though, in this case. I bumped into a lot of them that were just facing the wall, not doing anything. The easiest kill you'll ever get. Not a problem if it's just a couple of AI players per team, which is hopefully the case. But if you've got maybe 20 or 30 per team, it's a bit of a disaster. I also found myself getting one-framed at times as well. That could be down to a whole load of different reasons. Not going to pin it on the AI bots being just insane players, or maybe it was Studdy sniping me across the map. But I have a feeling some of it was down to ping, potentially. I'm not sure where players are connecting from in this test, but also potentially just some bugs or whatever it is, with the fact it is just a beta. One aspect of the game that I didn't like was the UI. I think that the UI in Battlefield games definitely is subjective. Most people do tend to enjoy the Battlefield 3 and 4 UI. Maybe a lot of people didn't like the Battlefield 5 UI. Battlefield 1's probably in the middle, but I don't know. You all have your own opinions on this. For me, Battlefield 2042 has a couple of problems. The layout seems to be alright, the minimap and all of that stuff is fairly similar in location to Battlefield 4, which in my opinion is the best UI of all. However, I do think it's a little bit difficult to read. I do not like the colour scheme at all. I think the teal colour doesn't go very well with all of the surroundings, and then having, you know, a few other colours in there, it doesn't quite complement each other as maybe the older Battlefield games did. But overall, it was the kill indicator in the middle of the screen and the kill feed that I didn't like at all. And then the bar across the top that drops in with this big block of colour, I just felt it was completely out of place. Again, something that can be fixed, but I really hope that they do away with some of the things like the skulls and all of that stuff and go back to what worked, which was Battlefield 3 and 4. Now moving on to something that I didn't like, and it's the final thing I'm going to talk about in this video, and that's the vehicles. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, I'm not going to lie about it. At the minute with this game, I'm just considering being as honest as possible, and we'll see where we go through the life cycle. Now the vehicles, you know I've always loved them in Battlefield games, but in 2042 I'm super disappointed. Now, Battlefield 5, I didn't like them too much. I thought that they weren't balanced, I thought there were all sorts of problems with them. We've documented it hundreds of times on this channel. But with 2042, I thought we were going to go back to Battlefield 4 style vehicles. Sure, you can tweak things and change things, but I'm talking about how they feel to drive and how air vehicles feel to fly. Having that weight to them and being able to almost feel that they're difficult to fly, but there's so much potential there if you get it right. The helicopters felt a bit weird, to be honest. The attack helicopter especially, I didn't enjoy flying it one bit, and you can kind of see what I'm getting at in the background as I fly one around. The jets, although I didn't record any gameplay, I flew it once, I didn't like it. I'm going to leave that to probably Silk, if you follow him, for his review on the jets to see what he has to say. The tanks, I mean, it's quite difficult to mess up a tank now I think about it. It's just on the ground as opposed to an air vehicle that's got all the other aspects to it in the air. The tank was okay, I suppose. The fact that you've got, and this is with all vehicles, ammo that regenerates into the same pool of ammo all the time means that you can just spam it. They could probably tweak that, so I'm not going to complain about it, but it just didn't have the same feel to it as a Battlefield 3 or a Battlefield 4, even a Battlefield 1, which the vehicles weren't great, but they had a good feel to them, if you know what I mean. I am super disappointed with the vehicles. Again, they can probably be changed before the game releases, so this is one of those things you've got to kind of hold your tongue a little bit until the game releases and you get the full experience. But for me, one of the biggest disappointments in the beta, I can't lie, was the vehicles, that's for sure. So overall, the game had all the elements required to be fun and to be a good sandbox experience, enjoyable for both console and PC players alike, but it didn't strike me as that successor to Battlefield 3 and 4. It did fall short in quite a few areas, namely the vehicles. and the map design. Not so much the map size. I think you can have a really bad small map as well. I just felt like this map was far too open. And I think that maybe there's a little too much to fix all of that before the game releases. This is, of course, probably an older build. And the way that DICE probably go about this is they are just going to be focusing on optimization and getting everything they've got ready out for everyone to enjoy. I don't know. I think it's going to be a game I enjoy and I play, but it might not be the game that I hoped it was going to be. I don't know. Let me hear your opinions down in the comments. Judgment, as I said, will be reserved until the full release of the game, and I'm quite aware that your experience might vary wildly from mine. So again, let me hear your opinions in the comments, and I look forward to reading them. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy your open beta experience, and I'll catch you in the next video.